Hey guys! So sometimes we can't imagine what we are capable of in extreme situations. When in a survival situation, your entire body and mind are working just to make it out, so the result may be astounding. So this incredible story happened in 1993. Extreme travel fanatic and simple French electrician Emily Roulet decided to go off the beaten path. This time, he was going to Africa. The 43-year-old man decided to cross the Morocco desert from Tantan in the north on a specially prepared Citroën 2CV car. It was a small car with front-wheel drive that Africans called a steel camel. It turned out that camel let Relay down at the worst time in the desert. He should have listened to the bells of fate and turned around after leaving Tantan when soldiers stopped him to warn him that there was a conflict area between Morocco and Western Sahara ahead. Fate clearly was trying to slow Emily's attempts to stick his head in the oven, but he didn't listen and did what he pleased. While the man was visible to the soldiers, he obediently drove back the way he came. But as soon as he was over the horizon, he turned toward the rocky desert, hoping to drive around the blocked area and standing patrol. Relay wasn't scared of problems, and his old friend had never failed him. He had an impressive set of tools, hardware, and some pipes with him. As always, he had a spare tire and jack with him. When he thought the deed was done and turned to the south to get on the road, something powerful struck the car, sending it flying and crashing loudly back to the ground. The car flew into a large stone hidden behind a tuft of desert vegetation. The wing spar was broken, and the suspension arm had folded in half. Emily stood in thought. He had already driven a few dozen kilometers from Tantan. In his good physical shape and with his food reserves, he could walk back. But how could he abandon his favorite car in the desert? Since he had owned the car, he had become very attached to it, and there were unexpected nocturnal predators to worry about when walking in such places. He had enough water and food for 10 days, and the car could survive as shelter from predators at night. After weighing the pros and cons, he decided to stay where he was. He would need a ton of parts and tools to get to work. But once he began, Emily thought and remembered his old hobby back when he didn't fix cars, but made them into motorcycles. It was important to calculate everything thoroughly. If he made a mistake, he'd be stuck in the desert on foot without water or food. He slept in the car and got to work in the morning. He left the frame as shelter from the changing temperatures, sandstorms, and unwelcomed guests for him and his food. Now, the idea of making a car into a motorcycle was genius, but extremely challenging. Instead of a garage, he had the scorching sun and dangerous sandstorms. Before starting, Lorraine pulled the transmission and engine out of the broken car, which would be the core of the entire construction. It seems impossible that this man could take apart a car and put together a new machine without any special tools or welding machines that would let him join pieces together. Instead, Lorraine simply twisted all the pieces together. He did that by bending the edges of the metal parts at a 90-degree angle and punching holes in them using a hammer and a pin. If that wasn't possible, he used the existing holes. The base of the frame was made from the front and back wing spars after lightly tinkering with them using a metal saw. Emily calculated where he would put the battery, the fuel tank, and how he would place the steering wheel and attach his luggage. The hardest thing was the drive gear. Since he didn't have any chains or extra gears with him, the involuntary inventor decided to use the left brake drum that was pushed up against the motorcycle's rear wheel to rotate it using friction. The wheel rotated in reverse, so if he wanted to drive forwards, he needed to put the transmission in reverse. The most important thing was driving to a populated area, so the travel built a machine that was primarily durable and functional, and didn't think about comfort at all. After 12 days in the desert with only keys, fleas, a hammer, and a metal saw, Lorraine put together an exotic but functional motorcycle out of his broken car. He desperately wanted to survive. and he had no drill or welding tools. LeRae put the drive gear together and remade it several times. The first attempt still ending with the creation flying upwards and flipping and almost crushing its creator under its 550 pounds. In the end, the camel was tamed, even though it was still terrible to control. Now, by that time, he had eaten and drank almost all of his supplies. He didn't have much to put on his vehicle, just his tools, sheets, maps, a compass, a homemade tent, and his remaining 50 ounces of water. The vehicle didn't have a muffler, so all the sounds and smells were felt by the driver. It had no footrests. Its max speed was 12.4 miles per hour. Any faster was too risky because the machine had no brakes and had to be stopped using his feet. Finally, LeRae set out. He drove until dark and was able to make it to a road. He slept out of exhaustion and was awoken in the morning by a patrol he had wanted to avoid. The police distrustfully listened to Emily's story about turning a car into a motorcycle. After that, the mechanical wonder was put under armed guard, his camera was taken, and they took the potential spy to search for his car's skeleton. They found it on the second day. They no longer suspected him of espionage and returned his camera, but they found a technical complaint. The handmade motorcycle was fined in Tantan, and LeRae had to pay a fine of 4.5 thousand drams because the documentation did not correspond to the current state of the vehicle. After that, the motorcycle was given to its owner. A month later, another car of the same model Emily returned to where his first car was disassembled, finally took it apart, and left Morocco with the pieces. LeRae had taken his motorcycle to many exhibitions, and he went to Africa for his next adventures with his steel camel. LeRae's story was on French TV in the mid-1990s, but remained unknown until the story exploded on a motorcycle website a few years back. Now LeRae is 70 years old. He lives in northwest France and is justifiably called the Steel Camel for his incredible engineering capabilities and unbelievable durability. He is a very happy and joyful person who is currently remaking Citroëns into incredible transport devices. But the motorcycle and the restored Citroën 2CV are still safe in his backyard and are used as stories for his grandkids. Man's fight to survive doesn't let him fail in any extreme situations, especially if the person has many skills, unlike me. Well, that's all for today. People like Emily impress and amaze me with their ingenuity and skill. So what do you think? Let me know in the comments. While you're at it, leave a like and don't forget to share this video too. And we'll see you next time.